Good morning and welcome to another bicycle live stream on Sunday, March the 10th. Yesterday, when I was doing my live stream, I accidentally said it was the 8th. Anyway, it's Sunday, March the 10th. It says it's 27 degrees already. It's certainly warming up for autumn. And I've ridden 22 kilometres this morning, and I'm up near Merrimack, near what's it called? I can't think of the name of the estate, but anyway. So I'm continuing the series of understanding different things, and this morning's topic is understanding our false ego. And good morning, Susie, and thank you for watching. So, a little bit bumpy here, but I'm about to cross over onto a different track. So, this is a really interesting topic, a really interesting one to understand and talk about, and also a very misunderstood topic as well. Very, very misunderstood. Most people do not understand the false ego and how it works. And I'm going to cross over here when the traffic stops coming, which looks like about now. So all of us have a false ego. All of us have a heart as well. But what is interesting is the two should operate in cooperation with each other, but rarely do. And the false ego is so misunderstood by most people that it is referred to as the ego. It is not the ego. The ego is God. False ego is our minuscule, much reduced power that we have trying to pretend that we are God. Hence why it's called the false ego. But what is the false ego? Okay, I think I'm right now. I think I know what I'm doing. And Zara, thank you for watching. The false ego is referred to as false because it is an identification with ourselves that is not correct. It is not who we are, but most people identify with it and live their life as if that's who they are. And that ties in with a thing called FBI, false bodily identification, where we think we are the body and we act accordingly. And this creates so many problems in society. In fact, is the leading cause of problems in society in the way we live our life and in the way we interact with others. Because when we think we're the body, we fall into a trap of speciesism, sexism, racism. All the labels that we identify with the body create all these issues because we are thinking we are the body, and we're not. So when we understand on a deeper spiritual level that we are the soul, then these labels that we are attached to disintegrate and disappear, and so do the problems with them, such as racism and sexism, etc. Those isms cannot exist when we realize that we're not the body. We're not black or white. We're not male or female. That's just the material body that we, the spirit soul, is traveling in. When we have the wisdom to see this and accept this, then that takes us away from one of the big problems of the false ego, which is wanting you to falsely identify with the body you're traveling in. So why do we have a false ego that wants to do that, and where does it come from? Well, the false ego originates through our mind and wants to be in control. And it's interesting because one of the characteristics of the false ego is pride and arrogance and the belief that it is number one. Yet the irony of the false ego is that it is so insecure that it cannot handle minute amounts of criticism. So on the one hand, you've got this identification through the mind that is identifying that, you know, the message is coming from the false ego, you know, I am the best and I am the greatest and, you know, I've done this and I've done that. And it's like, so it's, false ego is building itself up, yet if you dare to even look at the person sideways, you know, look at them the wrong way or say something, even just, you don't even have to say anything. You could just not say hello to the person, and they are so insecure from their false ego that they're like, oh, Fred didn't say hello to me, oh, how dare he, you know. And it's so laughable, the fragility of the false ego. It's just, you know, when you examine it, you just, and you realise that it really is best thought of like a spoiled brat, basically. So, and morning Claire, thank you for watching. So with a spoiled brat, if you keep giving them things without them valuing where these things come from, then you create a dangerous precedent for the kid that does not value things that should be valued. And I've just got to concentrate on crossing over here. And all right. And so this creates a dangerous precedent in which this behaviour is actually amplified. This natural false ego behaviour of arrogance, etc. Morning. This is actually a really nice, oh, some ducks there, really nice area I'm riding through now at Emerald Lakes. So it should actually probably be on the front camera so you can actually see it, because all you can see is the trees behind my head. Anyway, it would mean I'd have to adjust the angle of the camera. So the false ego is always in a state of insecurity, always afraid that somebody's out to get it, always defending itself. And these are not qualities of the real ego. The real ego, God, is number one, and does not. God does not need to defend himself nor prove that he is number one. He just is. End of story. You know, big difference. Whereas a false ego is playing this imitation game, and life on the planet is very much an imitation game based on if you look at the traits, if you look at the traits of the false ego and then compare them to the real ego, you'll see they're a pale imitation. So if we're not the false ego, if we're not our mind, then who are we? We are the soul within, tied into infinite wisdom through the heart, and that is where the competition comes between the false ego and a lot of people out here this morning. It's great to see. And that is where the competition ties in between the heart, which peacefully sits in the background, guiding us with wisdom that the false ego is unable to access. And you know, it's really, there's so many analogies or examples I could give to help us understand the false ego. Another one I was just thinking of is that it's a bit like, you know, real sweetness of, say, fruit, or natural sweetness of fruit, which is like what the heart is, versus, say, artificial sweetness of sugar, which initially tastes fantastic, but then has long-term, or with long-term use, has detrimental health effects. So, oh boy, just got to get through, going through a lot of different ups and downs, and I mean, it's really, really nice to ride through here. Right, so when we understand the false ego, we understand its limitations, and we understand also the, I guess you could say, the danger of giving it power and attention and so forth, because it doesn't have our best interest at hand. It doesn't have wisdom, heart wisdom. It's only, or its main characteristic is to be number one at all costs, and to the point where it will actually kill the body that it is travelling in order to prove that it is number one, which you might think that is ridiculous, and it is. That is the ridiculous nature of the false ego, and whereas it is completely the opposite of the heart, which will do everything to protect the spirit soul with a wisdom and wisdom and a knowledge that is timeless. So I'm going to keep this brief because I just wanted to really just make you aware that a lot of people make the mistake. They talk about the ego. Very seldom do they talk about the false ego. They don't realise that the correct terminology there, and then they also don't realise that what the false ego is an extension of, or a identity, false identity with the mind and its desire to be number one. And this is what gets us into trouble. This is what brought us to this planet in the first place. And so the wise thing to do is to actually be aware of this and to work on understanding it and work on reconnecting through the heart, through spiritual practice. So I hope that helps give a little bit of clarity on the false ego, and also a little bit of an understanding on the danger of following it, because you'll be led astray and it will not be to your benefit, and it is so arrogant and selfish that it will create destruction for you if you follow it to its natural conclusion, I guess you could say. So anyway, that was the main point that I wanted to get across. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them after the live stream, and I hope you have a great day. Remember to live vegan and save lives, and I'll speak to you soon. Ahimsa.